We are live. Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Doc Bookshop. I am Donna Craddock, and I'm in the presence of the one and only Rosenna Bakari. Thank you, my dear, for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And we have, and let's give a clap of hand for our in studio audience. And we're going to be in the virtual world. We're on YouTube, and this will also go off on Facebook and Instagram. So welcome everyone. Gather your people. You do not want to miss this Arthur talk with Miss Rosenna. She's going to be dealing with her book Seven Exits, and I am just so excited to have her here. We want to give a shout out to Mike Gwynn for making this all happen. Mike Gwynn Entertainment. Thank you for bringing her to the DFW area. We're excited that you're here.
Yes.
And I'm just going to turn it over, and I'm going to let Miss Rosenna do her thing and get out the way.
Oh, hello. It's nice to be in warm weather still. I came from Arizona, so I didn't have to travel to the cold weather yet.
Yes.
So thanks for coming and extending this time. And it's a wonderful bookshop. I have to say, bookshop, cultural center, community center. So if you have not been to the Doc bookshop in the DFW, then please stop by and show some love and support. So this is exciting. So let's talk about Seven Exits and what we're doing here. I started this tour based on the book Seven Exits, and oftentimes people ask me, "Is this my first book?" And so let's start there. We can't spend too much time with my history because I'm old. We don't have that much time. But I wrote and published my first book in 1994. And so Seven Exits is my seventh book. Yes, pre computers, pre Facebook, pre everything. So I've been publishing. That book was Self Love, Developing and Maintaining Self Esteem for the Black Woman. So I've been writing empowerment and self help and healing books for a long time. Not just books, but articles too. My PhD, of course, is in educational psychology, and so this is a very personal realm for me. And of course, I've been living openly as an adult survivor of childhood abuse for more than a decade too. So this whole healing journey is very personal to me, not just personal in terms of my healing, but personal in terms of establishing a course that makes sense for people. And by that, I mean that makes sense where people don't have to be diagnosed just to get help. A course where people can feel supported in their journey without believing that there's something wrong with them, or without feeling guilty because they want help, or without confusing them because the help that's offered to them is so convoluted or either too simplistic to really make a difference in 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 appreciating the complexity of the issues that people are dealing with. So Seven Exits is a culmination of all of my work, really, and all the things I think I've been trying to say over the last 30 years, and have finally come to say it in the way that packages it for people to use it as a course of action, not to take them from just one destination to another, but as a help book that they can carry along with them, refer to from time to time, read over and over again, have something to cling to when the course gets too difficult. So, laying out the seven exits that we can pay attention to is one way that people can say, "Oh yeah, I get it. It gives language. I'm in. I'm attaching to complacency. I haven't fully let that go. Let's go and see where that is. Oh, stagnant relationships." So, it gives language for people to have a way to adapt to their own journey, healing journey, self development journey, whatever that journey is. Giving language is really important, as opposed to just um, these little cliches for people. And cliches are nice; they're quick bits, but they don't help in a deep development. So Seven X's is really meant to support people in deep development, not surface development, but deep development, and helping them look at the work in a personal way and hold their hand in a way that makes them feel supported on this journey. So that's the whole point, the whole purpose of 7Xs. And so today I want to share some things from it to hopefully make it make sense to you. All right. So one of the things that we talked about was that I shared with you when you came in was the seeds quiz. So when we talk about empowerment, or we have not everybody necessarily would say, "Oh, I feel disempowered." That's not the current language we use. It will be right. So what we're talking about is what does it mean to live an empowered life, and the difference between a lot of people talk about power, which you have to be careful how you use that. But empowerment is really focused on what is the power that I have within me to create the external life that I want in a way that does not conflict with what's inside of me. So empowerment has a lot more to do with alignment. Do I sleep well at night? Not just do I control other people. Do I know how to create peace around me? Not just can I tell people what to do or complain about people or share my victimhood whenever I want to. But empowerment is about doing the inner work so that the outer work looks different. So many of us get on this journey where we're trying to force changes on the outside and hope that it'll make us feel different on the inside. So 7 exits and the power of departure really rewrites that script for us because I think it's more effective. Do the inner work and watch the external world around you shift in a way that brings you peace, in a way that minimizes conflict, in a way that helps you sleep at night, in a way that probably helps you reach whatever goals you have that you want to reach. So that's what that's about. So let's talk about the C's quiz for those of you online. The C's quiz is actually in the book. I don't remember what chapter it's in, so I'm not gonna lie. But it's in the book, and the whole idea about the Seeds quiz is that, as it says here, the survey is designed to help you explore subtle forms of emotional disempowerment that may influence how you show up in your work and relationships. So you respond to the questions in the book. There are 10 questions. I'm not going to read them to you because I think you should go buy the book and find them. um, but there are 10 questions that you respond to really easily. And the idea is for you to get an idea of where did you even learn about power? That's the question that these answer here. So that's what one of the things that I want to ask you all and talk about um, today is where did you even learn that you had power? How old were you when you realized that you had power? Oftentimes, when I ask this question, the answer is never, or the answer is 20 something after I graduated from college, right? And so that's a long time to go because the reason that's so long is it's too long is because we bring things into adulthood that don't serve us. And so if we have not been introduced to our own power, that means someone else has been using our power up to now. And so it's difficult to get to a sense of empowerment. And so that's why these questions are important, as you can see. So then you score them on a 1 to 10. They're not scientific, but they are based on what I've come to understand, again, through my background and experience and teachings, what I understand, some of the things that people struggle with. So, for example, what was your score?
A one.
A one. That's great. And so you had a one. So based on what the one is, do you feel like that was like, oh yeah, this feels like me, based on your score?
Um, yes, but I also had question marks on two other questions.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
But like growing up, did you learn to avoid conflict at all costs? Um, I didn't learn to avoid it. It was just always thrust upon me growing up. Um, so I always had like conflict. I think when I finally learned who I was is when I learned to avoid it. but I don't
Okay.
think there was ever growing up from the 14. I don't think
Okay.
there was ever a time that I could avoid it, but it
Okay.
wasn't brought on by family, it was more outside.
Okay. All right. All right. And what about you?
My strong support.
And did you feel like it resonated with the explanation?
I feel like it does. Definitely some of those questions, thinking back and knowing how I felt before the age of 14 and then how I went out and how I present myself to the world later in life and even now. Um, I show up in power, but I feel like I have to prove that I have this power because my voice was not as welcome as a kid growing up. And I think that's generational stuff. Um, I mimicked, my parents mimicked how they were raised and so on. And so being a parent, it's good to see this because it allows you to then self-reflect and see how you're treating your own offspring,
Right.
to allow them to become their full self at an earlier stage. Because I was one of those in the 20s that it
Right.
clicked, you know.
Right. 20s is better than 40s. A lot of us is 40s and over. So yeah, so the C's are the subtle experiences of emotional disempowerment. Because it's easy, a lot of times when people come with trauma, then they have an avenue that tells them sort of what it is they need to do. But there are a lot of people who don't identify with trauma, but still are struggling in some of these areas. And the reason that is because they often overlook, or no one has given them permission or invited them to look at other ways that you could have been disempowered with good intentions. So it's not that people have to beat you over the head or call you names or take things from you intentionally, but sometimes it's embedded in culture. Sometimes it's embedded in just the way that the situation was, what was available to us, what resources were available to you. So it all matters. How we were introduced to our ability to affect the world matters. And so this is just one. And again, the 7X's really try and present to you all the ways that you can look and go about reclaiming some of what may have been not necessarily taken from you, but what may have been absent. So 7X's shows you how to fill in those gaps in constructive ways without having to claim yourself as a victim. Okay. Let's do one more trick. That's what I like to call them. So one of the things that I've worked on, and again, I try to write 7 exits in a way that leads you to your own intuitive self. So there's a lot of self-reflection in it between exercises and activities. But the whole way that it's written is designed to lead you to yourself. And so one of the things that not everybody uh, knows about me because it's more recent is that I've been trained in hypnosis. And so, and the reason I got trained in hypnosis is because I used so much visualization in my own work with clients. And so, I really wanted to understand a difference and understand what the additional benefits would be to deepen my visualization into hypnosis. And so, I'm excited about that. And so, what I like to do is ask people to think of a number from 1 to 7, because I know 7 exits. People are like, well, what are these darn exits? And so, we're going to talk about the exits. And so, but what I'd like for you to do is use your own intuition, because when you start reading the exits, people like to think of it sometimes as a horoscope. It's not quite a horoscope where you get to cherry pick, oh, I'm a this or I'm that. It's really trying to understand a broader perspective of empowerment. But at the same time, like you said, you had a very low score on the C's. You had a high score. Someone, of course, who has an 8, 9, or a 10, which many people do, they're likely going to see more struggle, right? And so oftentimes if the ego, which I'll clue you on, the ego is the first exit. For example, if the ego is big, it's not always easy to see what some of those other exits are that may be prominent because information is in a way. And so I like to ask people to imagine a number from 1 to 7. I don't have my teacup. I'm not gonna do the teacup. Don't worry. But but I'm gonna ask you to rely on a genius of your subconscious. So instead of me invoking hypnosis, I'm gonna ask which relies on a genius of the subconscious. I'm gonna ask you to simply ask your subconscious, what is a number from 1 to 7 that will best represent what I would benefit most from paying attention to in the 7 exits. So that's all you're going to ask yourself. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to think of that before I give you the cheat sheet, right? Because when you look at this, then you kind of want to choose and pick either what you're really ready for or whatever. So I want you to ask yourself, and
You're just picking a number?
yes, I'm going to give you 30 seconds to think in your mind a number from 1 to 7, knowing that that number that you choose is going to represent the exit that the genius of your subconscious is wanting you to pay more attention to. So I'll give you 20 seconds left. And then I'm going to ask you your number. Okay, everybody got a number? Got a number?
My number? 4. Mine is 4 as well. 3.
Okay, so we got some 4s and 3s. All right, I'm going to give you your card. And so I'm going to talk about each of these. Now, here's the thing. You remember, this is the genius of your subconscious. You may not even know why you chose 4. It's the genius of your subconscious. And that was the significance of really choosing without knowing the number first. And so if we look at the 7 X's, we go over them, and then your chore now becomes, does that resonate? What might that be saying that I wasn't thinking about or I wasn't considering? Keeping in mind that that doesn't mean you should not pay attention to the other 6 exits, because you absolutely should, right? But that there may be perhaps some obvious or some hidden stuff in that exit as you engage that you may have overlooked. So the first exit is the hyperego. And the hyperego means that the struggle is feeling unseen, unless performing or achieving, right? And so doing a lot of things to manage people's impression of you. And so that may be the big issue. The cost of that, of course, is that your self-worth is contingent upon what other people say it is, what they do, how they receive you, did you get that promotion, how long the relationship lasts, et cetera, et cetera. And so that could be of concern if that's the issue. Silence and secrecy is the second exit. And in that, we carry unspoken truths about identity, trauma, and or feelings. So no surprise, there's a lot of shame there when that's the primary issue that may be holding you back or that you could benefit from. The cost is never feeling like you are fully yourself because there's so much hidden. Exit 3 is emotional dependence. And there's needing constant reassurance. And when people struggle with emotional dependence, that's a real difficult one. And all of these really somewhat build on each other, because if you're struggling with emotional dependence, then your ego is playing a very big role, right, in what it is doing to try and keep people active and engaged for you. But you're tend to be a little bit more fragile, or maybe a lot more fragile when you're emotionally dependent. Maybe you're walking on eggshells, or you're living in constant conflict, because that's how you get the attention of people. Exit 4 is stagnant relationships. The struggle is staying connected to people who do not nourish your growth, right? Oftentimes we see that comes with family ties or community ties that people have had sometimes since they were children, or jobs they don't want to leave, not just intimate relationships, but a variety of relationships that people often find themselves stuck in. Uh, and the cost is trading vitality for familiarity. Exit 5 is complacency, choosing safety over growth. And of course, many people struggle here, avoiding risk, staying in their comfort zones, and the cost, of course, is confidence and passion slowly erode because you're not doing anything, or not living up to your potential because you decided, or your ego or something has decided that this is enough. This is all that you want to risk for now. So you stop risking. Exit 6 is indoctrination. There's a struggle living by unexamined rules and beliefs. And whew, we see a lot of that going on, right? Where people cling to rules to guide them instead of authentically trying to align with what fits for them, what works for them. And so we see a lot of relationships erode because of the ideals that people carry into those relationships instead of building up what the possibilities are. And then exit 7 is passion and purpose. The struggle is chasing society's ideal of success instead of true alignment. And the cost is that you begin to feel distant and authentically silenced. And this is really important. A lot of times people have asked me, like, why, why should I exit passion and purpose? You can't, if you exit passion and purpose, then what do you have left? And so the idea about exiting passion and purpose is not giving up passion and purpose, but giving up the pursuit of passion and purpose as if that's going to give you something that it's going to make your life complete. And so in the exit in the book, when we talk about passion and purpose and exiting passion and purpose, we're talking about exiting the myth that there's something out there that you must achieve to be whole. You are whole right now, right here. And when you find and live through that authentic wholeness right now, then your passion and purpose become part of you, not a pursuit of yours. And so that's the difference. So those are the 7 exits. So any of those resonate with you as you go through and what your number was.
4 and 6. So 4 was the one that I chose, and then 6 just kind of goes back to what I explained before.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So those are those exits. So let's see what answer the question that we talked about in the beginning that I didn't give you a chance to answer, which was, how did you even become introduced to your own power?
For me, it was leaving home. I
Leaving home.
went to school 5 states away. I was the first one in my family to actually leave um, the DFW area to go to school. Everyone else probably went 90 minutes. Um, I was the wild card, they would say. And so I think being there away from all of my family, away from everything, just the patterns and how I grew up and who I grew up with, it forced me to take a look and see who I was, and then also being exposed to other people. Because as a kid going to school, yes, you met other people, things that the way they handle things in their household or the beliefs and everything that they had may differ from yours, but it's totally different because they are still kind of rinsing and repeating what they've been taught. But when you move into adulthood, you begin to shift and you
Sorry,
begin
I
to
forgot.
no problem.
Go ahead. Continue.
So I was saying that I think for me, I actually was introduced.
Yeah.
Okay. For me, I was actually introduced to my power when I went off to college. So I went to undergrad 5 states away from where I grew up. And at that time, I was the first one in my family to do so. And so just being the wild card and being introduced to a new part of the country, meeting people from other places, not necessarily doing things the way that they were done in my parents' home and in my grandmother's home and things like that. Just even diversity. You know, I live in the Dallas, or I grew up in the Dallas area, and there was diversity here, but everything was so centered around home that you really didn't see it. Um, I know one thing that we talked about was that a lot of times people are doing things out of goodness, not to harm you, but when you're closed off and you don't get to explore and open yourself to being able to receive different perspectives, to see different perspectives and just kind of move through, then you're not really living freely. So I would say that it changed for me once I left home.
Thank you.
Um, for me, it changed when I'm gonna say when I was able to accept myself as I am. Growing up a light skinned black woman in the 70s and 80s, for me, it was hard. I can't speak on anyone else's experience. But when I learned to embrace who I was, my skin and all, it empowered me. So I I think I was probably 18, 19, 20, and I just realized this is who I am. This is how God made me. I didn't ask to be this way. But once I was able to embrace me, it empowered me. So there was nothing anyone could tell me or say to me or anything, because when I step in a room, you're gonna know I'm there. So I would just say, just learning who I was, um, good, bad, ugly, and all in between. For me. So
All right, thank you. So when you think about how you use power now as an adult, how has that shifted from when you were introduced to your power?
I think for me as an adult,
Using please, sorry.
for me as an adult now, I've just learned that I don't have control over certain situations, people, and things. Um, so I mean, I hate to say it, but I just don't care. Like, as long as it doesn't affect me, it's not my problem. That's how I feel. Um, and I'm just me. Like, and I accept everyone for who they are. And I give people the same grace I would want someone to give me. So I hope that answered the question.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome to join in if you want to do some
So as far as using my power today, I would say almost silent but steady at times. Like I don't feel like I have anything that I need to prove. I know who I am walking through the door, but I also want to give people an opportunity to embrace who they are and then to listen, because iron sharpens iron. And a lot of times our ego is just spending so much time taking over who we are that we're not open to being corrected, to reflecting, to any of those things. So my power today is really just making connections. I'm really big on making connections, and I'm really big on listening, because that's not something that I'm not going to say I wasn't listened to as a kid, but the listening looks different.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I use my power today.
You say something very, very interesting. I know. Could you mind? I think I should be using it too. Thanks. You say something very interesting that's super duper important, and I think related to the context of the book, because we're talking about empowerment. And earlier I mentioned the difference between power over somebody else, versus empowerment. And so oftentimes in Seven Exits, in one of the very early chapters, either the introduction or chapter one, I say empowerment is radical because it requires self being self-centered. And so we often don't think about mental health or personal development as self-centered, but it is critical. But it's self-centered because it means that you center yourself in your life. And what we've been conditioned to believe is that centering yourself means excluding others, which of course it does not. And so oddly enough, when we talk about empowerment, which is what you're saying, it makes you listen more. It gives you more compassion. Once I learn to love me, then I have more. Then that's how my cup overflows. And then I get to serve you from my overflow. And so I'm glad that you hit on that point that, oh, well, now that I'm empowered, everybody else can now be more important. But when I'm not important, I can't let anybody be important without me begging them for something, right? And so that's how you really begin to shape yourself inside of those different relationships, is by finding your own power internally, being self-centered, because when you're self-centered, then your connections with everyone else are more beneficial. So thanks for that. Did she have something? Did you?
About my power.
So we started talking about how old were you when you were introduced to your power, and then how has that understanding shifted as an adult? If you want to address it.
My name is Maya. Nice to meet you. When I was introduced to my power, I think I was like a kid because of my father. He made it known that I was beautiful and black. And then, growing up, you have to like take care of your siblings. So I realized like I gained leadership from them. And but then I realized once I was like in middle school that I felt powerless compared to other people because of the attention that they got, and I called myself trying to become them, like assimilate with them. So I feel like I lost my power. But then I gained my power at the end of that when I was going to high school because I realized like it's cool just to be myself, and I end up building a solid friend group with girls that were cool like me. They wasn't like the most popular. And even now, growing as an adult, I have put myself in spaces with people that I feel like have been abusing their power over me. In the sense of like I know more than you, I have better connections than you. So it made me seem small. Yeah, recently I've been telling myself like no, so I gain power in setting boundaries and not overperforming, trying to act like I'm okay with everything, everybody. I know I don't feel in these spaces. So I feel like I went through a series of like, I know my power, I'm a leader. I don't know my power, I'm not a leader because I'm not being separated like this. Like, oh, I actually am powerful. I don't have to have people following behind me. I don't have to control people. I don't have to be accepted by people. I can just be myself, and whoever naturally gravitates towards me is more powerful than anything else. I'm still learning how to hold my power because I still feel like I am overly performing as a black woman. I want to put myself in different spaces, be a little bit more knowledgeable because social media is flying around. So I feel like I'm losing power with that. And I'm trying to take it slow and be patient instead of trying to thrust myself in spaces where people have dedicated their livelihood to be there. Because I'm going to be accepted as that. So I'm learning how to just accept myself in that. And I feel powerless in doing that. That's what I mean.
Thank you. Praise you. That's what we did so far. Thank you. Thank you, sister. I appreciate you sharing that. Appreciate you being here. So we've just talked about some of the ideas and 7 exits, and I definitely want to give us a time to have some Q&A and see what else is significant for you in this whole realm of empowerment and what it looks like, or the book, or the writing process. What else would you like to know?
So you said that this book is a culmination of.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna ask you to use the mic, so, because I forgot the first half, sorry.
Okay, so you said that this book is a culmination of probably all of your work over the last 34 years, and it sort of seals the deal on what you want people to get. And the easiest way to deliver it was particularly in this form. But I wanted to ask, does the book lean more heavily into book one or two, or like, are there certain things that you worked on in the past that you found, okay, I wanted to explore this a little bit more in this particular book than perhaps I did the last time, or in working with people since I wrote it the first time, since I addressed it the first time? What have I learned, and what's going to be the most beneficial for the audience that's reading the book?
I love that question. Thank you. So I wanted people to have not necessarily a roadmap, but I wanted people to have a path. And just because it's a path does not mean that everybody's going to walk it the same way, right? But it's a path. And so we've been given so many snippets of professional development and growth, and people don't know what to do with those, or they think that's all of it. And so I really wanted people to have a path, not a snippet, not one thing. Like have boundaries. What does that mean? What does it mean to have a boundary? And should you really have a boundary? And how do you have a boundary without caging yourself in? Those questions don't come from snippets. And so I really wanted people to understand what this journey could look like for them if you pursue it and you're paying attention to this and to that, to these 7 exits. So some of the other books were pieces. So like 2 of the books are daily readers, so they have information in them, but they're really meant to give people more daily inspiration. So like read this paragraph or this page today, and then focus on this is the healing journey, and then you have these, I think, 12 articles, one for each month. So they were things to give people the concept and invite people onto the healing journey, but it wasn't the same type of path for people. And so I really wanted to deliver something that would give, like, oh, this is something I can do. So when we say be the watcher, right? That's one of my favorite phrases from Eckhart Tolle, be the watcher. I love that phrase. Nobody really knows what the heck it means. What am I watching? Right? It's like, but I know it because I know his work, right? Like I get it. But when I say be the watcher, or people say you have to become self-aware. Okay, aware of what part of myself? What am I supposed to be aware of? Well, you're supposed to be aware of hyperego. You're supposed to be aware of silence and secrecy. You're supposed to be aware of how you show up with emotional dependence. You're supposed to be, so it tells you these 7 things that if you are aware of these things in your life, I promise you, things will shift. But otherwise, when we say be aware, it means, well, you have to know what color you like to wear on Mondays. And you have to know what your preference is for partnering. And you have to know what your favorite thing. That's not awareness, right? Or confusing preferences or confusing personality with depth, right? Like, well, I'm just an introvert. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't do extroverted things. Right? And are you really an introvert, or is that how you nurture your childhood wounds? This book answers those types of questions when it says, take a look at these areas and see. And so I think it cuts through a lot of what we thought we knew. And from everybody who reads the book, the first thing they say is, oh, this is not a quick read. The words are easy, but it's not a quick read because it really asks you to question what you thought you knew about yourself what you are willing to believe about yourself and where you really want to be. Just like young lady, just like you were saying, like, oh well, yeah, I guess I thought I felt powerful, but then when I take a look at it, it's like, oh, I'm compromising a lot to fit in, right? And so, do I really want that much compromise? Because we all compromise something to fit in, but do I really want to compromise that much? Am I losing myself? How do I regain authenticity? Oh, I need to go back. So you can go like, oh, that's what I'm doing, the passion and purpose. Ah, yeah, I need to really keep an eye out on that because that's the one that I'm really likely to get lost in, right? And so that's what I think is different. It really is, really does lay out a journey for people if you're ready to take that journey. If you want snippets, then read other books. But if you really want to work toward personal development and empowerment, then this is really the book for you. Yeah, I love that question. Thank you.
I have a question. So, what inspired you to write your very first book?
So I've always been just a little bit of a rebel. And so, and I've always believed that like if you want something done well, do it yourself. That's a problem. That's not good. But see, like that's a cliche. Like that's not healthy. Like that's don't do that. I'm just saying that's where I that's part of where I come from. Um, there are a lot of ways to get things done without doing it yourself. Because doing it yourself is a good way to get burnt out. And so, but at that time, right? And so I had my daughter at the time was 2 years old, and I had a master's degree. This was before I went back to school to get my PhD. And so my daughter was 2 years old. My son was 3, and I was reading this book, one of the first books on Black women self-esteem that I remember being out there because this is back in the 90s, right? Oh Lord, I'm talking about a century ago. So, and it was a great book. I liked it, but the book had some parts in it that, as a new parent of a 2-year-old daughter, I was like, this is not the part I want my daughter to understand. Like, this is not how I see passing down information to my daughter. Particularly, they were talking about sexuality and Black women and sexuality. And at that time, it was about people being free and free to choose and da da da. My consciousness at that time was that no one's ever ignored Black women's sexuality. That's the problem. We've always been sexual beings. No one has ever allowed us to not be sexual beings. That was the message that I wanted to give my daughter, was that you get to choose and that you do not have to be subject to trying to be a sexual being. Because people see you as a sexual being. What do you want to do with it? How do you own your own sexuality so that no is actually an option? So that abstinence is actually an option, because that's the stuff no one tells us as Black girls, right? And so anyway, so out of all that, I wrote a book just to put that part in there, right? To my daughter, who, by the way, I'm sure to this day has never read that book, right? Right. But it was the idea that I had a message. I wanted to bring a message into the world that I think would benefit a group of people that were told something that I didn't necessarily see as the most beneficial message. So my message has always been, and one of the things I love about my writing is that you can go look through any of those 6, 7 books. The message hasn't changed. Where does your power lie? You have a right to choose. And so I'm not new. I'm not the new kid on the block. I'm not new off the street. I've been doing this work really for a very long time. And I'm proud of that when I look back on it, right? It's like, who is out there encouraging and motivating us to live through our own power? So that's what encouraged me to write my book. And let me say to this woman, it was I think Julia Bond was her name, to this Black woman who had written this book about Black women. She gave me the idea to write a book. Writing a book had never been on my mind, right? She was like, oh, I'm a Black woman. I can write a book. If I had not read her book, didn't matter whether I agreed with everything, some of it, or none of it. It was the fact that I read this book by this Black woman who was giving a message that then told me that I could have a message too. So I'm very grateful for having read that book. You have a question, Donna? You would ask.
Well, you probably, I wasn't. Sorry, I couldn't love it. Oh, I sorry.
My question is I guess pretty simple and personal for you. I just want to know of the seven X's. You probably already talked about this. I've just been running around. But what exit are you at right now? Like which one resonates with you? I just want to say I love how you summarized this for us.
Oh,
I think this is great.
you can hold it up for them so they can see it.
So they can see it, the card. Yes, I love how you did that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So I think my struggle, and I've come along. I mean, I'm gonna pat myself on the back because I come along. I had come a long way, but really the work is eternal. It's always the work, and there's a reason why hyper ego is number one. One, because the ego really is the foundation for how we show up in the world. So it's connected to all these other things. And I think with all of these, I feel really strong on that I've done a lot of work in them. When I get off base, it's probably the basics. It's probably because I'm fighting, my ego is fighting something. Like I still struggle, like, but did she really say it that way or did you take it that way? That's ego, right? That has nothing to do with stagnant relationships or you're not asking for help. Well, so for me, that's the one that I'm really good at noticing. But it's also the one that if I'm going to be off the rail at any point, it's probably because I'm gonna notice that you didn't get there today. Your ego was all in the way today. What do so it's a challenge. I think that'll continually be a challenge for me. I'm really good um with managing relationships and all of that stuff. And in ways that don't get in my way. Passion and purpose now in doing this work is always just keeping an eye on what success is, right? And what that looks like for me. But I think the ego is just a beast to keep watch over. Like I think you can get to the point where, at least for me, where oh yeah, relationships are good. I really know how to manage those and give and take. Oh yeah, I've let go of the silence and secrecy. That one's done, right? Like, oh yeah, I've learned how to not sit in my complacency. Like we kind of learn these and they carry us over. But the ego is like, it just keeps popping up. It's not like, oh, I learned not to do that. And then like I would say that's the one that I will perpetually keep working on because it keeps showing up. Thanks. Any other questions?
How do you know when to stay silent and then when to actually like speak your truth? I feel like um for me in my community, I don't really speak a lot, but sometimes I feel the urge to speak. But then I'm like, I don't really want to say nothing. Maybe out of the fear of being misunderstood in the way how society and social media are so ready to have deep pieces on everything without fully comprehending what's being said. So how did you, like, I guess, figure out when is the perfect time to stay silent, and then when is the perfect time for you to speak about whatever it is that you need to speak on?
Thank you. I wish everyone would ask that question themselves. So that's a very wise question. So, and I don't know that I have a wise answer, other than to say, I think particularly when you're engaging in social media, it's super important now that everyone has what's now being labeled a brand, right? A reputation. And I think if you decide, again, empowerment, I'm deciding there's this life that I'm trying to create for myself. It has people in it. Who are the people in this life that I want to have around me? It's related to my materialism in this way. I want to be an executive, or I want to be a speaker, or I want to be a CEO one day. Like, what are the things that I'm trying to create in my life? And then what am I willing to sacrifice? Like, really trying, that changes when you're young, right? So you can only answer them based on where you are now. But really trying to decide for yourself what feels right for me, what aligns with me, with the type of person that I really want to be, who are the people that I really want to be around and spend time with. If you don't like the people that you are around, then it's difficult for you to be able to answer those questions authentically. So when you're in a room with people that you like to be around, whether they're runners or bowlers or political people or religious people or whatever, but where do I feel most comfortable? Like, this feels like home to me. And start to play with the idea, then what do I want to contribute in this world? What feels right? What's the feedback that feels right? And so when you're on social media, how do you then create that brand? Meaning, if it's not related to that, then stay out of it. I mean, stay out of it. If I'm not trying to be, like I train and I run. I'm not running right now. I love running. So sometimes if someone puts up, let's say, misinformation about running, what do I care? Like, that's not, like, running is a hobby. I love it, is what I do, but it's not my brand to dispel the myths of running around the world. Right? Right. And sometimes, even if it's about mental health or authorship or certain books I don't like, right? You will never see me on social media talking about why I don't like books. That's because that's not my brand. My brand is to support people in their mental health, not say bad things about how other people are trying to support mental health. I'm not here to compare. I'm not here to publicly judge what other people are doing. I'm here to talk about the power of departure and what that means. And so when it comes to social media, I really try to stay in that lane because it is vicious. I'm not looking for a fight. I don't have time for a fight. And what I know for sure is that can eat up so much of your energy. So here's the question: if you find, and this goes for relationships off of social media too, if you're not with people that energize you, then you have some questions that you can ask yourself, like, why do I keep showing up here if it's not feeding me? Because what is it feeding? Sometimes, and that's why this book is so important and understanding these exits are so important. Sometimes we create replicas in our life. So, for example, if we have this familiarity with conflict, we'll go find it because that is how it was in the household, or that is conflict was a representation of love where I come from. And I don't know how to feel loved in the absence of conflict. So you create that. And sometimes people create that online. Or I'm angry because I never got this resolved. And so the people that I'm really angry about, I don't have access to, or I can't have that conversation with. So I have to go somewhere where I can dispel that anger or displace that anger. Right. And so we're always getting something out of it. So if you keep going to places that bring up in you something that's uncomfortable, you still have to ask yourself, but what am I getting out of it? Why do I keep going back to this place that doesn't feed me? What is it feeding me? And really trying to take a look at that in a very gentle way, not in a way that you need to beat yourself over the head with, because judgment does not serve us in that way. But in a way, it was like, oh, well, why did I go back there? What was I looking for? What was my expectation? Oh, I really want people who receive me and who I feel comfortable around, where do I find those people? And that's not easy to do. People are not, finding your people is not always easy to do, but it's doable. But you can never find your people by going back to the places where your people are not, just because there are people there. Well, they're not my people, but they're people. Then you but you can never get to your people if you keep going to where people are who are not your people. So I hope that helps. Thank you. Any other questions? No one online is worth having conflict with. No one. No one. Because that's a whole different world. Any
Thank you.
other questions?
There's a lot of things that I'm thinking about. So now that you have finished this work and
Here
you're
you go, Sean.
so I would like to say now that you've finished this work and it is such a powerful read, what is next for you? What do you feel like you would want to pour yourself into next?
Thank you. I want to do more of the personal work with people. Right now, I do a lot of consulting still with businesses, and I do some one-on-one work with people. I imagine in the near future starting to speak more and broaden the audiences, but also doing more patented work with people, whether that be in groups, online groups, or some sort of sessions to really support people in working through this stuff. So that's really what I'm hoping. But the other piece of that is, like I said, I have, this is my seventh book, but I also I'm a writer at heart. Like I love writing. My perfect day is go for a 5 mile run in the morning, eat breakfast, and then sit at my desk for the rest of the day and write. Like that's a perfect day for me. And so I know that there are more books in me. I continue to write, blogs and everything else. And so I'm always looking for a way to combine all the loves that I have, the writing and the teaching and the supporting people in person. So there's more of that. But some of the stuff that I have written, I've written, like many people, writers always have this stuff that we haven't shared with anybody, right? Like people pass on, like, oh, they have a collection of whatever. So I'm no different than that. I have some of my previous books that are written but not well read. I'll do more promoting of that and that sort of stuff. So, yeah.
It's good to hear. It's good to hear you say that you want to support people in actually doing this work and doing their journey. You're not just pushing a product and expecting them to pick it up and then you just go for it. So to not leave people alone is a good thing. And then also, you mentioned before, had you not picked up that book and read the book when your daughter was 2 years old, you probably wouldn't have had the thought to write your own. So I think putting yourself in places where people get to see you, your authenticity, the realness, and not just turning the pages of a book makes them really believe that they can do this. And not only can I do this, there are other people that have done it, and there are other people that are rooting for me to do it as well. So giving back is huge. And I would say, of course, like you said, writing for you is a hobby, just like you love to run and you like all things being active. But I also believe that we're put on this earth, especially going back to purpose, and your purpose and your ministry at this point is actually helping people. So you've been being prepared for this all of this time, and now you're starting to see, okay, my children are now grown. I've done this, I've done that. Where am I going to position myself now so that I can continue to affect the world? Because that was one thing that you said in the beginning was being empowered is learning how you can affect the world.
Yeah. And so you're doing that, and I thank you for that. That's a word received. I receive it. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. I appreciate all the support. And thank you all out there for listening and joining in on us.
Ready to close it out? Okay, give me your credentials, your website, all that.
All right, so I'm Dr. Rosenna Bakari, empowerment expert and author of 7 Exits Leave Behind What No Longer Serves You. You can find me on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Either look at Rosenna Bakari or look up 7 Exits. The website is 7exits.com. So I'm not hard to find. So please like, follow, all that stuff. You're gone.